What's going on, guys? Pronogo here, bringing you another Brood War modding tutorial. This time, we're going to be discussing some of the more early, entry-level concepts, such as data editing, and this will be fairly simple stuff. Again, I will be making reference to, or what the program I'll be using is going to be the Python modding suite, and you can download that in the link below. It has some pretty helpful tools for newcomers. It automatically will load the default sort of data files for all of the categories, and if you mouse over something, like I'm mousing over mineral cost right now, it even has helpful tooltips for you to explain what things are, like unit size and target acquisition range, and etc., etc. Now, what is PIDAT? It is a modding tool that edits .dat files, which control basic unit characteristics like their stats, a lot of things related to like weapons, how fast air units move, how large selection circles are if they have them, any color remapping that's very specific to different pixels or different palettes, and costs of upgrades, how long they take, same for tech, how much energy they cost, sound effect data, as in you could actually set like a volume percentage. Oh, okay, I didn't even know about this, so this is pretty interesting to me. So you can actually set the percentage of a certain sound effect to a higher or lower. Like, let's find... is there any file that's actually not 0? That'll be an interesting one. Well, I'll research that later on. But if you wanted a file that, like, say, an advisor line or something that would always play, even if mute unit sounds was a mute unit speech trigger was executed in like a campaign or something, then you would be able to, so it's at 10% for explosion sounds and 40% for some of the larger ones. So that's interesting. So you can actually mess around with that if it had like a new sound effect you wanted to add into the game and it was louder than it should have been, you could lower it even further. Portrait data, this is not actually making your own portraits. It's sort of like modifying the frequency of some portraits, I think, or something related to that. I have never really messed around with portrait data. Map data is like figuring out, basically if you're going to replace the default campaign maps, you can actually select which map files are loaded based on where the player clicks on the mission list and stuff like that. So that's useful if that's what you're doing. And then for orders are actually more useful than you might think. This is stuff like spell orders, how you mess around with things like if you're adding a new spell or you want to give a unit that didn't have a spell and then modify that spell, and you're just cannibalizing an existing spell entry, you can use orders as part of that, as well as iScript. So I'll get into iScripting, which is a completely different sort of category of modding in a separate video. But all of those categories that I just went over are separate .dat files. So everything we edit in units, in this units tab, while this is sort of embedded into the ground, or whatever you want to call this, it's like highlighted. This is all in one file. It's all in units.dat. And then there's this, everything we edit in weapons is weapons.dat, and so on and so forth. So portraits are portdata.dat, for example. So that's just a bit of a primer. They always have to be named this in order to be recognized by the game in pretty much all cases you'll ever see. So the only case where that wouldn't be true is if you had some custom rules that you wrote in C++. But for, I don't think there's ever been a situation where anybody's bothered to do that, since nobody's ever needed to. So for units.dat, or any file really, you can always take a look at the entries that you can edit and search in the bottom corner. The number displayed next to the entry is the ID number of that entry. So Terran Marine is actually the first unit in the ID list for all of Brood War. Now say we're all the way down at the bottom and we are editing the Overmind unit entry and we want to jump back to the Terran Marine, we can, instead of typing out Terran Marine in this left box, we can actually type 0, which is the ID, and then hit ID jump, and that's in this small box here, and that will jump us back to the Terran Marine. So that's doable for every single field here. So that's a useful tool for navigating the interface. And this is the stuff that I like to go over. Whenever I'm looking to start using a new tool, I always like to know what the interface is like and what tools I can use to navigate it. So just keep that in mind as you make your way through and start learning how to use this tool. It's a little bit different than DAT Edit, which is an older program that some people who may have edited mods a long time ago might be familiar with. It's also more robust and has more utility in a few different ways, and obviously is better documented. So in my book, on top of being way more stable, it in general will be my go-to whenever I'm editing something. So props to PoiQuert, who developed the Python modding suite, including all of its programs. And if you have any problems, you find a bug or something, you can always find, I'll leave a link to the specific thread that he's sort of known to look at for feedback, and you can just report any bugs there, and he'll take a look at them. So yeah, without, that's the preamble sort of the video. Now we're going to take a look at actually editing a sort of unit and making them have a different weapon. So nothing super spectacular, but what we'll do is we'll take the Marine and we'll give it the phase disruptor from the Dragoon, and we'll make it deal some splash damage in an area of effect. We'll also increase the Marine's base stats and give it some shields, and I think that's probably all we need to worry about. But this is all accomplishable with just PIDAT. You don't need to download anything else. So let's start with the stats. Let's buff the hit points to 60, and let's give it 60 shields. We're not in the in the market for a balanced mod. We're really just trying to test things out. We'll give it 1 extra armor, and we'll set its mineral and Vespene cost higher than default, just so that we can justify spending that money. Because obviously we're getting a much better unit than before. We don't really need to worry about any of this stuff, but we could give it 1 extra sight range, just minor buff there to make it look a little bit like it's doing stuff. If we really want to get crazy, we can hop over to the Advanced tab and tick Regenerate, so that it actually heals itself slowly over time, and that would obviously mean that this guy doesn't even need medics. He's just he's regenerating like a Zerg unit or something. We can also make it a detector if we wanted to. We could make it robotic, which wouldn't necessarily change anything about the unit, but would make it immune to spawn broodlings, so that's something we could keep in mind. Let's see, what else did we want to do? I don't think we really need to worry about anything else here. We can hop over to sounds. If we wanted to, we could change its ready sound and all of the sounds for its, when he's annoyed, the piss sounds when you click on them too much. What he says when you select him, what he says when you order him around. In graphics, we can specify a different graphic file, so just for the fuck of it, I'm going to make him a ghost so you can see that it actually does work. It won't make a new ghost file or anything. Like, it's not going to make a new ghost graphic. It's just a pointer to use the ghost graphic instead of the Marine graphic. We don't need to worry about construction since he pops out of the barracks. The portrait is currently set to Marine. We can set him to Jim Raynor. Jim Raynor stole this unit and apparently a ghost suit at some point. And then its unit dimensions we don't need to touch because he's supposed to be a little meaty, I think. For Star Edit, this is mostly usable for like triggers and stuff. If we wanted to make it so that, like, say location triggers wasn't ticked and we wanted a unit, like we wanted to take a new unit, like maybe I don't know, like what isn't in location triggers? I'm not sure. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Let me scroll through this list. So I guess like the Protoss marker, right? This is just currently it just uses the scout graphic. But say we wanted to use this for some reason, we would have to tick like location triggers, unit listing and palette, mission briefing to make it appear usable in mission briefings if it had its own portrait setting or whatever, player settings. Non-location triggers, so if we wanted to just create a unit, we would need location triggers for that. If we wanted to kill all of this unit, then that doesn't need a location. We would still need to tick this. It's stuff like that. And then obviously if you make any changes that you don't want to keep, you can right-click on an entry and hit reload. So back to the Marine that we've modified here. We don't need to modify anything in this. It's already set up to be a perfectly usable unit. And then this is how any normal unit will look like for the purpose of being idle or for the purpose of being used by the AI. So if we were to make an AI script that trained this unit, say we had we replaced the scanner sweep unit, we would need to and we wanted the AI to build them and use them in their attacks or stuff, we would have to make sure that these two bottom boxes were not ticked and that the rest of the fields looked like this. We don't have to worry about this right now, though, because obviously we're not messing with AI. We're just doing stuff for our own testing. So now we're all set with units. We can go ahead and save as to make sure we don't overwrite the default units.dat file, and we can save this as units because that's the file name it has to be in. Let's hop over to weapons, where we have already highlighted the marine weapon. And we'll, I want to take the phase disruptor from the Dragoon and just apply it onto this unit. So how am I going to do that? I could reference this stuff nonstop and just keep like bouncing back and forth between the two weapons and copying entries. But I right-click and copy entry will do the job for me. So why would I, wait for that? Let's go ahead and just paste that in. And we can set the upgrade field back to turn infantry weapons, but otherwise we've done everything we need to do that would require referencing the phase disruptor. Now I did say we wanted to make it have splash. We can also make the range a little bit more generous. Now this Marine is going to be throwing this stuff for quite a while. And you can explore these things, like the behaviors of weapons is obviously pretty interesting if you haven't already looked at this stuff. Fly and don't follow target and fly and follow target are fairly similar and also self-explanatory. Appear on target unit is the default for the Marine, and it uses the Gauss rifle hit graphic. So this stuff is easy to just select. Like we could make him shoot glaive worms if we wanted to. We could just we could do a lot of different things. But we want to give him the phase disruptor, and we want it to splash in a small radius. So we'll set it to 10 inner, which is full damage. We can set it to 20 medium, which is half damage, and then 35 for outer, which is 33% damage. So let's go ahead and save this file as weapons.dat. Now, we've got our two data files here. We can go ahead and pop them open. See them right here in this in my desktop, which is very well sorted, as you can see. And then we're going to go ahead and pop open PiMPQ, which is a tool for creating new MPQ files. MPQ files are like patchrt, or stardat or brewdat, which are files that exist in your Brood War installation, regardless of whether or not they're remastered. And this method of packaging modded data will work for either StarCraft 1.16.1 or remastered itself. So let's get started here. First of all, navigate to whatever installation you want to modify. I've got my remastered folder bookmarked here. I also have an installation of just 1.16.1. And just find your patchrt.mpq. Make a copy of it, because you're going to need to just have a copy for the purposes of backing up. Although you actually don't need to worry about this if you're editing remastered, since it will patch the data afterwards. So now we can go back to where our mod stuff is, and we can move the original patchrt there. And we can open it in PiMPQ. And as you can see, all the list files are already set up for us, so we can see basically every file that we, is necessary. And we don't really need to worry about looking through any of these right now. But as you can see, you can actually tell that the units and weapons.dat files are located in this MPQ. So let's go ahead and hit the big green plus sign and navigate to our units and weapons.dat files. Hit the open button, and then for the folder name, we just need to type ARR and put a backslash there, similar to this prefix here. So we hit OK, and now these files have been updated, and we can go ahead and close PiMPQ. We don't need to save it. It does all the saving automatically, which I think is a bit of a design oversight, but I think it's necessary based on how the programs load the files or something. So that's why you always want to make a copy. So now we can copy this modded patchrt. We can go back to StarCraft 1.19. We can get run over by a tractor or whatever the hell is outside my house. Meanwhile, we've pasted this through. So now, since I've done this on remastered, I can go ahead and pop open my BattleNet client, and we can go ahead and launch remastered as we are wont to do. Eventually, it'll pop up here, and make sure that you try to play the game fairly. You try to launch the game fairly quickly, because obviously it's going to try and patch the modded data out if you use the MPQ method. So now, you know what? We don't even really need to make like a custom map. We'll just play the Terran campaign and skip all this nonsense here. And here we go. We've got our Ghost Marines, and here you can see the modded stuff has already taken into effect. It has Rainer's portrait, it has Phase Disruptor's icon, and when they shoot the Phase Disruptor. Now, let's go ahead and test it out to make sure that the splash damage worked, but it should be totally fine. We've got our units. They've got 60. The wireframe is obviously still the Marine, but I went over that in my last video. We don't have a way to currently fix that for remastered. So let's go ahead and shoot these guys. Now, these guys also have the splash damage, and as you can see... well, actually, maybe we made the splash damage too small. Oh, you know what? I know why it's not splashing. I actually screwed up in one of the files, and I'll show you why in just a second. Show you why it's not doing it. But because these are explosive damage, obviously the the damage versus light units is not great. But the damage versus buildings will be pretty respectable. So as you can see, they're doing quite a bit of damage for just two Marines dilly-dallying there. So yeah, that's it. That's how you put together a modded unit, and I'll explain the flaw in the way that we did it for the purpose of the video and for completion's sake. So let's go ahead and exit the program. I don't know what it's uploading. It's uploading like Bitcoin mining addresses or something ridiculous. Let's go back to weapons.dat. The reason why it didn't apply the splash is because, and there it is, it's patching our modded data out, is because we forgot to set it to splash enemy for the explosion effect. So make sure that you do this every time you want it to splash. It's just I forgot to do it when I was guiding you guys through. So that's a very simple fix. We can save this file, and if we wanted to, we could boot it back up, and I would show you the splash. But that's everything. That's how you make a modded unit in Remastered. You can also replace it in your own MPQ, and I'll walk you through how to do this now. For Brood War, you don't even need to worry about replacing patch RT. You can just make a new MPQ, and we can call it test, or whatever we want to call it, and we can go ahead and pop open units and weapons.dat, replace them with ARR, or have them be prefixed by ARR, and now all we need to do is, where is MPQ draft? This is a little bit of it's sort of a diatribe. I'll package MPQ draft and upload it so that you guys can use this program as well if you need to. I would recommend just using Firegraph to add the archive there. You know, in fact, forget it. Forget MPQ draft. Wipe that from your memory. We're going off script here. And we're going to go ahead and make a new exe with Firegraph, which is also available in the link below. And we don't need to actually modify anything in here, so don't get dissuaded by maybe this program looks complicated. Don't worry about it. We just need to save as, or save, and we can save it as test. And when it asks you if you'd like to copy an archive into the saved file, you say yes, and you click test.mpq, and you don't need a custom icon. And then you can close this program. And now, I'm going to go ahead and use the windowed mode tool that I have somewhere. We can play our test exe here, and let's find, well, we can just go into the same mission. And this is it in Brood War. So, very spectacular, as you can see. Does all the same stuff. Oh, we're bringing a tank with us. You're not modded, tank. You don't get to come along. So, yeah, that's it. You've got your custom Marine here that's gonna shoot people in the face a few times. So as you can see now, the splash is hitting. And as you can see, the scripts are a little bit different, apparently, since they decided to have a fire bat there or something. I don't know. So now we can just shoot these guys in the head with our improved splash phase disruptor guns. And yeah, Stimpak would also work great for these guys, especially if it was a... Oh, I got sniped by a vulture before I could finish the kill. What a disaster. Well, that's it. That's it. Now you've got your modded unit. Now you've fixed the splash issue, and you've been able to do it in remastered and in 1.16. So you've armed with the knowledge to go crazy with this stuff until I put up my next video, which is going to be detailing how you modify animations in PiIce, which is a different program. So until then, let me know if you have any feedback, if you have any other questions. I'll be happy to answer them in the description of the video. And take care. I'll see you guys next time.